Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Mean Streets, powered by FTN, presented by Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney here with you. Thanks, as always, for taking the time to hang out on this Wednesday. Happy Hump Day. We're going to talk a little PGA. We have some NHL stuff to get to, as well as continuing the first part of the MLB conversation that will probably last for the next 5 or 6 weeks, as we hope that the two sides can come to an agreement. Again, like I said yesterday, I'm pretty confident that we will get there. We have Cecil Peters joining us today, fellow Canadian from CecilPeters.com, a pretty clever website, if you ask me. He's pretty sharp dude, too. I mean, we're going to talk some PGA with him, the Honda Classic. We're also going to get into some NHL stuff as well. There are 5 games on the ice. One of the hottest teams going in the NHL, the Montreal Canadiens, are on the ice tonight against the Buffalo Sabres. We're going to talk a little bit about the Kings. We both like the LA Kings. I think following Cecil and having some conversation with him, and really just following his work over the past couple years, we really like this LA team. Now, they have a pretty soft matchup against Arizona, but I want to get into just some Stanley Cup futures with Cecil and just get a feel on if he thinks this Kings team can actually make a legitimate run in the Western Conference. So we'll dive into some of the games, get some picks, some shot props, some Stanley Cup futures. And again, like I said, we will lead in this next segment with the Honda Classic. I think one of the toughest courses around really on the tour. There's not a lot of big scores. Looking back at the history and the wins, you know, minus 12, minus 13, and around that range. Of course, you have a really tough 3-hole stretch. You got the Bear Trap in there. No top 10 players here this weekend. And we have a lot of just not first time on the tour, but first time on the tour this year, some Euros coming over like Tommy Fleetwood, Shane Lowry, a couple guys like that. So we'll get into a few outright winners from Cecil and also get his thoughts on maybe DraftKings, see who he's feeling as well. I am out of my Survivor pool. Done. Just like that. See you later. Who got me? The Hove land. He just had I think he blew up on 17. He had 8, I think, at the Waste Management Open, and he missed the cut by 1 or 2. So I'm done in my Survivor pool. But I know there's a couple people hanging out here watching who are still in that Survivor pool who may be looking for some advice. So we do have Cecil Peters hanging by in just a little bit, and he will stick by, and we will talk some NHL stuff. Tino's going to drop by as well. Yesterday, we talked some MLB futures. We also got into some home run leader odds. I dropped it in a couple of our Discord channels over at FTN, and we were having a bit of a fun conversation. There were a lot of players on the first 2 boards that we didn't even really bring up, like a Cody Bellinger at 90-1. I think we just kind of touched on him a little bit. Luis Robert, I don't think he's there yet, but as a 24-year-old, certainly I think he is in for a breakout campaign. Like, when I say breakout, this is a 5-tool player who probably won't lead the bigs in homers, but I think he can get to 30, and who knows, right? I want to be in before he starts mashing balls over the fences everywhere across the league when we start to get into that age 26, 27, those power years, because I really do feel like he is maybe this is a little unfair, the next Mike Trout, man. I think he is. I think he's got all the tools. I think he's got some power. He probably won't lead the bigs in homers, but at 71, it's worth a sprinkle. So you can go back and watch yesterday's show if you're watching here on Game Plus Network. We have all the shows available on iTunes, Spotify, wherever it is that you listen to your favorite podcasts, and also FTN, our YouTube page as well. If you are here, I see some people hanging out. Cecil bringing in the peeps. Smash the like button. You have any questions for Cecil or myself or Tino, you can leave them there. If you're watching the replay of this show, you can also leave them in the YouTube section, and I'll always circle back before puck drop. We got the tournament happening tomorrow, the Honda Classic. So any questions, I will address them. Also, this show live, well, not live, but it will be over at our FTNBets.com page. All right, so before we bring in Cecil, let's talk a little bit about last night. I got 3 stars. I don't know, man. I need to count how many times Patrik Laine has been on here. Tino, George, do we know? I mean, do we just keep him in every single night here for Patrik Laine? Another strong performance from Mr. Laine. I mean, this guy is having a hell of a season. 2 goals last night. He's got 12 goals in his last 9 games. He really does look like the Laine in his rookie year, sophomore campaign. He definitely doesn't look like the Patrik Laine we saw last year with John Tortorella. I sound like a broken record, but this guy just continues to ball out. We had his shot prop in the FTN bet tracker last night as well. He had 4 shots. As you see there, he had the overtime winner. Shout out to Austin Matthews, who had 11 shots on goal in that game and had 3 points. He's having, obviously, a phenomenal season. 1 goal away from leading the league in goals in the MVP conversation as well, but really the spotlight belongs to Patrik Laine last night. And again, another loss for the Leafs. That's 3 straight, and 24 of their last 27 games, we've seen at least 6 goals. We had the over last night as well, which did hit. Put it in some parlays because it was a bit juiced up by the time, puck dropped. I even saw, most spots having it at 7. But for Laine, he's got at least 4 shots in 3 straight games and at least 3 shots in 4 of his past 5, and a pretty good price as well. We also had Mitch Marner and William Nylander who cashed in for us yesterday as well. We were not on the Ottawa Senators, but a shout out to Thomas Chabot, Eric Young's Ottawa Senators, maybe Cecil Peters' Ottawa Senators as well. Not really sure, but I know he was on there and he dropped into the chat yesterday. I thought Minnesota played a really good game, but Anton Forsberg, he's been really good this season. He kind of stole the show, but a shout out here to Thomas Chabot, who returned to the lineup last night, played 26 minutes, actually 24 minutes rather. He leads the NHL in ice time per game, 26 minutes per game. This guy's been an absolute beast. We love taking his shot prop here on this show. Just wasn't available with, late minute news that he was going to be in. Books just didn't have him available, but he's cleared 2.5 shots in 5 straight games. You see he had the 6 shots last night. He had the game winner, 3-point night for Thomas Chabot. He is an absolute beast. And then Rickard Rakell, 2 goals and 6 shots. We're probably going to see Rickard Rakell on a new team soon. I know the Ducks are hanging around. Maybe they keep him. I think that they probably move on. I would move on if I'm the Ducks, right? I mean, it's a nice story in Anaheim this year. They played really good. They got some nice young players. I don't think they're going to make any noise. I actually don't think that they're going to get into the playoffs. I feel like a team like Nashville and LA gets in over Anaheim. They're going to be there, though, Dallas and Winnipeg fighting with these teams. I think Rakell is probably a guy that Anaheim should move on from. Maybe you just have him on your radar in fantasy hockey leagues. I own him in a couple spots. He's a volume shooter. We were on Troy Terry yesterday. That was the mistake. The Sharks gave up a lot of rubber. They gave up a lot of rubber last night. Really, Rakell was the guy to target, but I wanted a plus money play. That's my bad. But Rakell with the 6 shots and 2 goals. He's got 6 goals and 7 points in his last 7 games and shooting the puck quite a bit. If you just look at the back of his hockey card, he's got at least 3 shots in 4 straight games, at least 4 in 3 straight games as well. So the stock, Rickard Rakell's stock is absolutely rising. I would imagine a couple teams are calling in to see if he's available. I mean, if he lands on a team, I don't know, I'm just kind of spitballing here, but like the Rangers, if he could be inside the top 6 in New York with the Rangers, I'd be interested, right? I mean, you're gonna like him really wherever he goes as a volume shooter and as a guy who really could put the puck in the net. Daniel H is hanging out. Obvious bounce back for Colorado tonight. I do like the Avs as well. If doing shots, might as well sprinkle to score on some guys as well. Yeah, Laine has been the staple of the 3 stars. He really has. It's been Laine in the NHL and it's been DeMar DeRozan in the NBA. And we return to action tomorrow in the association with a handful of games. So we'll dive back into the NBA tomorrow. Next up here, it's a little golf talk. We're going to talk the Honda Classic with Cecil Peters, and we're also going to talk some NHL as well. So a lot more to get to on Mean Streets. Keep her locked. Welcome back in, guys. Mean Streets here live on Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney, as we bring in Cecil Peters from CecilPeters.com. Cecil, you and I are in conversation usually, every other day, talking some hockey. You're doing some great work, of course. Always see you jump on the Mayo Media Network, and, you and I have done some hockey stuff in the past, so it's nice to actually get back together, see your face, and talk a little sports, man. How are you?
Yeah, it actually has been quite a while, so feels good. Feels good to be back. Feels like old times, so should be a good couple segments here going over the golf and the hockey.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just jumped in and told me on the private chat, no Nathan MacKinnon tonight too. So we'll get into the hockey in the next segment, but obviously that is that's pretty significant too for Colorado. I mean, Nate MacKinnon, it just feels like I don't know, man. Do you know? Is there an injury? Is it something just popped up? It seems like he can't stay healthy.
I think he's just had a lingering lower body injury, so I assume they figured Detroit Red Wings not a tough game, so they're going to sit him out for this one and let him rest up.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, Cecil, let's get into some golf here. We have the Honda Classic. We have a leaderboard here of just, it's the odds that we'll throw up. These are from DraftKings, but I always say, we have the free prop shop and parlay calculator over at ftnbets.com, so you can get the best possible odds. We've seen a little bit of movement, for example, like Louis at 25-1. I believe it opened up. HORSCHEL at 28-1. So we've seen a little bit of movement from those guys. If I set off the top, there's, no top 10 players here in this tournament. I think one of the tougher courses, I'll let you talk about that if you want to, if there's any in particular, any statistics that you are looking for. There are a lot of landmines here, a lot of trouble that you could get into, but we have some guys that are playing on the PGA Tour for the first time this season. You see Tommy Fleetwood there at 14-1, Lowry at 22-1 as well, Daniel Berger at 16-1, who I think is pretty interesting. Sungjae is the favorite here at 10-1. I like him, but I don't know if I'm going to sprinkle anything on him there at 10-1. If you're looking at this board, and we'll dig into some longer shots, Cecil, if you're looking at this board, who jumps out at you?
So the first couple of guys that I went to, obviously, like you, I really do like Sungjae Im, but 10-1 is just not going to happen, even with such a weak field. But Billy Horschel was the first guy that I looked at. He's played really well so far this season. He's got a really special ability to make cuts without hitting his irons well. So with every other golfer, we talk about, we just need that one really good putting week. Well, Billy Horschel has a good putting week. It's seemingly every week. Once every 5 or 10 weeks, he really comes through with the irons. Those are the weeks that he wins. A week like this where you don't need to hit it super far. I mean, Billy Horschel is really good off the tee, but he doesn't hit it super far. So we saw him compete at Torrey Pines a couple of weeks back, not hitting it far off the tee. He kind of scrambled and putted his way around that course. We saw him at the Waste Management. He had a good performance there as well. Again, kind of leaning heavily on the putter. Well, at this course, he's kind of going to be in the same position as everybody else on his approach with his approach game. So you combine that with his stellar putting, his stellar around the green play. I don't know that it necessarily gives him more of an advantage, but it kind of takes the advantage away from some of the other guys. So Billy Horschel plays well in Florida. He just doesn't miss cuts. He's missed 2 cuts in the past year. One was at the U.S. Open. I'll give him a pass for that. So Billy Horschel is going to be in the mix, and then you just hope to get lucky with the win.
Yeah. I mean, again, for people, I said off the top, I'm in this different pool. I don't want to call it strange because the guy who runs the pool is probably watching the show, so it's no shots fired at him. But it's a survivor pool where you pick somebody and you can only pick them once, but they have to make the cut. And if they don't make the cut, you're bounced. So I think Horschel's a pretty good one. Tino, you want to bring up the odds there quickly for a second as well? Just taking a look at, so you see the 18-1. I'm seeing 22-1 in some spots as well. Caesars, FanDuel at 21-1, BetMGM at 20. So there's still, an opportunity to jump in and get some decent odds there. What do you think about Matthew Wolff at 35-1?
Yeah, so Matthew Wolff's another one. It's just like you look at the guys that are near him here, Keith Mitchell, Shane Lowry. I don't know if you went a little bit further down, guys like Alex Noren. They're all pretty close to Matthew Wolff. And maybe if you were to take the average of their finishes throughout the course of the year, they would kind of all end up being the same. But at his peak, Matthew Wolff is way more likely to win. He's way more likely to come in the top 5 than any of these guys. A couple weeks ago after the American Express, if you would ask me if I would be betting on Matthew Wolff anytime this year, I probably would have said no. But then he seemed to bounce back. He made the cut at the Farmers Insurance, which was a tough course. He didn't end up playing super well, but he did make the cut. Clearly, whatever was bothering him at the American Express was kind of a 1 or 2 round thing. So it wasn't a huge deal. He went overseas and played in the Saudi Asian Tour event, and he actually finished 6th there. So whatever was bugging him that I thought would probably stick with him for a while clearly wasn't a huge issue. He's back. He's ready to roll. His fall swing was fantastic. I think he got top 20 or maybe top 30 in every single event over the fall. So he's got the upside. He doesn't have the consistency. I know there's a lot of water on this course. Off the tee, I'm a little bit worried that he might find the water a few times. But with his approaches, I'm honestly not too worried about it. It's basically if you can keep the driver on the fairway. And at this place, some of the holes, he's just going to not pull driver. He'll probably play his 3-wood, play his hybrids, take iron off the tee. So he'll have more of a chance to hit the fairways. When his approaches are on, some guys will see their approaches are on. They're hitting it to 10, 15 feet every time. When Matthew Wolff gets dialed in, he's hitting it to 2, 3 feet. He can do that for 3, 4 holes in a row. The guy's absolutely electric. Super high risk reward, but I think this is a reward week for Matthew Wolff.
What do you make of the Honda Classic? I think it's a pretty good tournament, man. I know we're not going to have the top players in the world, but I think it's going to be pretty competitive. Despite not seeing those big names, I think there's a lot of value on the board this weekend.
Yeah, so I go back and forth with this tournament if I like it or if I don't. And I mean, honestly, let's be real. It usually depends on if the players that I bet on do well. If they do well, I really like it. But it profiles as a tough course because there are so many big numbers out there. But it's a tough course that still yields a lot of birdies. You look at last year, Matt Jones shot a 61 in the first round. There's been 63, 64. So guys can go low. If you don't hit it in the water or you don't get yourself in those horrible positions where you're forced to make a double bogey, you can still put up birdies. You can still score. So it's a hard course, but it's not like a U.S. Open hard course where you're going to be challenged every single hole. If you hit the fairway and hit the green, it's not that bad. You just got to avoid going in the water, avoid the big numbers. So with the exception of Matthew Wolff, most of the players that I am interested in this week are the guys that just keep it out of trouble, keep it on the fairway, hit the green, and then you just hope to get lucky with the putter.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the water, right? So like I said, if you can avoid those big scores like you just alluded to, avoid those landmines, then you could be fine and hang around, on Sunday. Let's get into some longer shots. You gave some guys that you really do like. We'll get into some DK stuff as well. We do have a board here with some of your longer shots. If you could touch on any one that you like or all three. I love seeing Dufner on here, man, at 250 to 1. I know he's not feeling it right now, but talk to me about Jason Dufner, the Duff man. Let's go.
He's not feeling it right now, but he's not horrible. Like he's missing cuts, but he's missing cuts in events where you kind of expect him to make cuts. He's kind of what he is now is a guy that's going to need to show up at these shorter courses, these courses without a ton of par fives. It's all par fours. I mean, there are 2 par fives, but the bulk of your scoring has to come on the par fours. He's going to hit the fairway. He hits tons of fairways. Even when he's at his worst, he's hitting fairways. He's hitting greens. His putting is horrible. It's always been horrible, but he has won golf tournament. So he clearly knows how to win a tournament. Every once in a while, the putter comes on for him. So I really like Dufner. I like Dufner from the fairway. Everybody's going to be hitting 175, 200-yard approach shots on this tournament. So regularly, Jason Dufner's always hitting it from there because he's a little bit behind the Bombers. At this course, everybody's going to have a lot of those shots. So he's kind of on a level playing field there. As much as I worry about him missing the cut, I don't worry about him missing the cut because he's going in the water. So I don't think he's going to have those massive numbers. If he strings bogeys together because of the putter, then I guess we're out of luck for the week. And that's just how it goes. But at 250 to 1, there's going to be some concerns. And I definitely have a few concerns with Dufner, but I have him staying out of trouble. And if enough people go in the water and enough people fall behind, he'll find himself in the mix. Maybe not to win, but he's also super cheap on DraftKings. You can get a good top 10 or top 5 number on him on the bets as well. So I love Dufner. You'll also see CT Pan and Ryan Armour on here. Ryan Armour is a guy, does a ton of scoring on par fours. Over the last 50 rounds, he's the 8th best par 4 scorer in this entire field. Kind of like those other guys we talked about. You just take away some of the advantages from the Bombers. You take away the par 5s from these guys. Ryan Armour's going to put up numbers. He's going to hit almost every fairway. He's the best fairway hitter in this field, in my opinion. He hits a ton of greens. His putting's kind of hit or miss, but when it hits, it's really good. So I like Ryan Armour and Jason Dufner as super deep shots here.
And we love deep shots. I mean, what do you make of just the past couple weeks, seeing guys finally get their first win, on the tour? It's been an interesting start to the golf season.
Yeah, I mean, you got a guy like Niemann last week who's also playing this week. He also profiles fine for this course, but I mean, 18 to 1. He had probably his best around the green week of all time last week, which every week the winner is going to have to do something probably the best that they've ever done it. That's just how it goes. So I don't think Niemann's going to win this week. But yeah, it was nice to see him get his second win. It had been a couple of years since he won, and everybody had kind of been waiting for it. Same thing with Scotty Scheffler. Same thing to a bit of a lesser extent with Tom Hoagie. So yeah, we've seen it a lot with these guys. I mean, you can't really read into it too much. It's not like, oh, well, that's definitely going to be who wins this week. I mean, that would make no sense whatsoever. But it is interesting. Hey. And at this course, there are a lot of people that haven't won in quite a while or haven't won a lot of golf tournaments. So
Luke List too on that list, right? Is another guy
as well,
just,
yeah,
just kind of getting their first W's after some time being hanging around here. George wants to know if you've made it to the Outlaw Tour yet.
I have not, but we are getting closer. It's tough in the winter time. I can't swing the clubs around here. I got no golf, but George, don't worry. I've been working out. I've been exercising. I've been working on the swing speed. I'm going to come up blazing this year. I improved quite a lot last year, so the golf game got a lot better. Nice. By the end of this upcoming golf season, I plan on no longer being bad. I plan on being pretty good. So yeah, we're going to make a run for it, I think.
It's tough for us north of the border here. I mean, to keep the swing in tune, right, with some of the weather. I'm going up to a buddy's house before the hockey game tonight who's got a simulator, and I'm really excited to take a shot at that. I'm super jealous because I wish I was able to have, I mean, dude, we'd be out there every day, right, in the simulator. Are you kidding me?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Before we break and get into some hockey stuff as well, guys, if you have any questions, for Cecil, now's the time for sure. You mentioned DraftKings, you talked about DUFNER being cheap, maybe, getting involved with him, but I know you're probably just still putting together some of your lineups for tomorrow as well. You want to share maybe one or two guys that you seem to have some maybe more exposure to than maybe, I don't know, it doesn't have to be compared to other people, but just taking a look at your lineups, who are a couple guys that you have a lot of exposure to?
Yeah, so one of the guys that stood out, and he was really close to an outright bet for me as well. I did bet on CT Pan, as you guys saw in the graphic there as well. So CT Pan's a guy I like on DraftKings. He was third place last week. He was ninth place last week. He was third place at this event a year ago. Both of those finishes were kind of based on his putter. He's a really strong putter when he gets going. That's what's going to win him golf tournaments. It did it for him at the Heritage, of course. Not super similar to this, but similar in the fact that you don't need to hit it super far. So he performed well at a course where you need to hit it far last week, and I think that bodes really well for him moving back to more of a familiar track, a place he's had success at. So I like CT Pan. DraftKings-wise, a number that stood out to me a lot was 7,800 for Garrick Higo. Higo's won, obviously, last year. He kind of won in one of the alternate different field events at Palmetto, and, of course, we probably won't see again. So he won there at a course nobody had seen. There was a ton of weird kind of funky trouble on that course. You could go super low, but you could also get yourself in a ton of trouble, kind of similar to this. I actually liked his play at the Tournament of Champions. He finished off really strong there. He made the cut his last time out. So he's not playing phenomenal, but he's playing pretty well enough that at $7,800, I think he is a steal. He's a bargain compared to some of the guys in that range. And then another guy around him would be Lee Westwood. Lee Westwood's played really well at this course before, kind of got that old man experience. He knows how to play here. He's played it well before. And his overseas form has been not bad as well.
Myron checks in and says, who do you think is bad chalk this weekend?
Who do I think is bad chalk this weekend? So I'll go at the top of the board. I think that Tommy Fleetwood's probably a bad play. Just at the price. I mean, it doesn't make much sense to me. He is playing better than he was probably 6 months ago when he really fell off the face of the earth. But now he's kind of in the place where I think he should be a 50-1 golfer, maybe $8,500 on DraftKings. Near the top of both of those. He's close to the top of the betting board. He's close to the top of the DraftKings price. So Tommy Fleetwood is a guy that I am very much out on this week. Louis Oosthuizen is a guy that I think he makes the cut, and I think he's going to perform pretty well. But as far as an outright bet goes, he just doesn't seem to get the win. So Louis Oosthuizen, I would understand it for DraftKings because it's a good way to lock in a guy that's probably going to make the cut as long as he doesn't withdraw. But as far as win equity, I don't think I see it with Louis Oosthuizen as well. So those are probably the two guys near the top. And then the two most volatile guys probably on the board this week at the top, other than Matthew Wolff, would be Daniel Berger and Brooks Koepka. Berger's just got some back injury things that are apparently lingering. He missed the cut last time out. If he's fully healthy and good to go, he's a massive discount. So I can understand it from an outright betting perspective. You just hope that he's healthy because he should be 10-1 in this field if he was fully healthy. Right. If he's coming off maybe a 20th place finish last week, he's the favorite this week. He's the highest priced guy on DraftKings in that scenario. So you definitely get a discount on Daniel Berger. And if he's healthy and he's good to go, probably going to be under-owned. His odds are obviously not where they should be. So that would be kind of a boomer bust guy. And then Brooks Koepka is a boomer bust guy. Every time he tees it up, he's kind of like HORSCHEL, where you have no idea where his game's at. And then he'll come out and he'll fire a T2 or also miss it. Unlike HORSCHEL, he will actually miss the cut, though. So
yeah, Koepka's one of the, you're right. I mean, he's one of those guys that I just can't get a gauge on. I can't get a feel. I mean, a couple of years ago, he was at the top of his game, right? Yeah. Winning, majors, and he was crushing it. And Waste Management Open obviously has a history of doing well there too. But the last year and a half or so, it's been a little like, where's this guy's game at? You don't know. And I'm glad you brought up Berger, because I think he should be favored, but you're probably right. The health that's surrounding him is likely the reason that he's not the favorite here. Andrew Ford checks in. How about a long shot and an outright winner? Andrew, I don't know if you're just joining. We just kind of went over a couple long shot winners there that, I mean, we had a 250 to 1. We had a 200 to 1 in there as well. So we did have a couple guys in there, Andrew. Also, George, one more comment here from George. Stewie Sink, sneaky week again? Question mark. Yeah,
so Stewie Sink, I mean, he plays well anywhere. Like, he's played really well at the Heritage. He's now added the length, so he plays really well at those long courses. So he's not going to miss a ton of fairways. He's probably going to hit most of the greens. I don't think we're going to see another two-win season out of Stewie Sink probably ever. I don't think we'll probably ever see a win out of Stewie Sink, unfortunately, as electric as that would be. But I mean, it's kind of almost everybody's kind of forgotten about the guy, right? So all of a sudden he was winning twice a year. He got in the Tournament of Champions. He was playing really well. Now he's kind of back to where he's been forgotten about a little bit. So yeah, I mean, Stu Sink winning would be cool to see. It's a place where you got to have a little bit of experience. You got to know how to keep it out of trouble. So yeah, Sink makes sense.
I don't want to put you on the spot. We are getting a lot of golf questions, which is great. That's what I love about this show, Cecil, just having, people check in and, have an opportunity to talk to us and stuff. There was one more. I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you had something here, Daniel H is saying, Tino, if you can check this one up for Cecil here, top 10, top 20 bets. He says he tends to do too much. I tend to do too much better on those than outrights naturally. So he tends to have a little bit more success at the top 10s or the top 20s. Do you have anybody at the top of your head that maybe you're doing worth a little sprinkle?
Yeah, for sure. That makes a ton of sense. I mean, it's so hard to get a winner, and it's so frustrating when you have these guys that are kind of in the mix going on the last day. You go into the day like, I got a good chance to get a winner. And then regardless of if they finish third or ninth, it just doesn't make a difference. So in addition to Ryan Armour, DUFNER, CT Pan, guys like that, deeper on the board, I like Adam Svensson, Canadian guy, but he lives in Florida. This is where he practices, so he's going to be fine on these Florida greens. His putting is pretty bad, but he's another one of these short hitters, hits fairways, hits greens. He's a very accurate player. So Adam Svensson, and he's had a couple really strong weeks already this season, played really well on the Korn Ferry Tour last week. So he'd be kind of one of those guys that you go for a top 20 at decent odds. But if you want kind of the safe, just the plus money, even if you're only getting maybe plus 200, plus 120 on some top 20s, guys like Keith Mitchell, who have played really well here, Mito Pereira, who is pretty chalky this week. That's another guy I should have mentioned in my chalky fades. Mito Pereira is going to be massively popular this week. And it makes sense, but I just think his price is a little too high for a guy who seems to be doing a lot of his damage with the putter lately. So he's an exceptional player. He won back-to-back on the Korn Ferry Tour last year, but I just don't think he's quite ready to be where he is on the odds board and where he is on DraftKings pricing and ownership-wise. But guys like Aaron Wise, Mackenzie Hughes, Russell Knox, Brian Palmer, even to an extent, he's notoriously bad over the bear trap, the 3-hole stretch with tons of water, tons of guys making doubles. But other than those 3 holes, he tears this course apart. So he's been bad lately. I don't think he has the winning upside, especially because he's almost guaranteed to get probably 2 or 3 double bogeys throughout the week. But you got to get a guy like that to finish in the top 10, top 20. You can probably get some decent odds on that.
Love it. We got a break. We went a little long here in this segment, but I do appreciate all the golf knowledge there. We do still have a lot more questions, guys. Maybe we can hit it up in the next segment. Cecil's going to hang around for one more. We're going to turn our attention to the NHL. Cecil also covers the NHL, so we're going to talk some shot props and get a couple winners out of him as well. So keep your lock. Mean Streets continues here on Game Plus Network. Welcome back to Mean Streets here on Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney and Cecil Peters here hanging out with you. We're going to switch our attention to the NHL. You mentioned about Nathan MacKinnon, who's not going to play. Let's shy away from that Colorado-Detroit game. We can recap a couple in a little bit. We do have 5 games here to get to. I wanted to talk to you about the LA Kings. I see you tweet a couple times, my Kings, my Kings. We've been talking about the LA Kings, I think, all year, actually. You know, I really like their squad. I mean, Victor Arvidsson addition, he's shooting the puck quite a bit. Obviously, that second line with him and Moore and Danault, they've been really unbelievable this season. They've been underpriced in DraftKings. They've been pretty sneaky. So LA has a matchup with Arizona tonight. We know how much the Coyotes have struggled. Some of these odds have changed a little bit. They are heavy favorites here. The Coyotes, over the last 6 weeks, have 5-5 per 60, Cecil. According to Natural Stat Trick, they've allowed the second most shot attempts, the fourth most shots. They're 6th in high danger chances allowed, 5th in goals against, expected goals against, 5th, and the second most scoring chances against. Do you like the Kings tonight? Are there a couple players that do stand out, in your opinion, from a shot prop standpoint or from a DraftKings standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. I love the Kings almost every night. You always get decent odds on them, even against Arizona. I mean, minus 220 is a lot, obviously, but against the Arizona Coyotes, that's actually not bad. We've seen teams like Colorado be minus 500, minus 600 against LA. You hit the nail on the head with Los Angeles second line. No player to me has been more impressive than Phillip Danault. Like everybody, I think I thought that Los Angeles not only overpaid, but massively overpaid for him this offseason with $6 million a year. But I'm not on the West Coast, but I'm further west than you are. I watch a ton of Kings games. Usually they're on late. My kids are in bed. Everybody's sleeping. So the West Coast games are the games I watch the most. And I find myself drawn to the Kings game just because they're so dominant possession-wise. They don't have the scoring punch of, say, like a Colorado or a team like that. But how they win is they keep the puck in your end. They don't allow you to get any momentum. I've watched shifts with the Danault line where they just keep the puck in the offensive zone for a minute and a half. They just cycle it. They get a few shots on net. So super impressed with Phillip Danault. Unbelievable defensive player, and he's really heated up offensively the last little bit. So that line has been my go-to on DraftKings for probably a month and a half. They're finally starting to get correctly priced, so they're getting up there. They're almost as pricey as the first line of the Kings right now. They don't have quite the upside as far as goals, but at the end of the game, Phillip Danault is usually the guy that's on when there's an empty net. Andrei Kopitar used to be that guy. Kopitar, and this also helps the Kings as a whole. Kopitar used to have to do all the offense, and he used to be the shutdown center. Well, now Kopitar's just focused with shutting down your second line. Phillip Danault takes care of the first line, so it frees up the Kopitar line as well. I just love the whole entire team as a whole. I don't know how they've been doing it with their defense. Drew Doughty's having an awesome season. I love seeing him bounce back. He took a ton of criticism, took a ton of heat the last couple of years. He's almost a point-per-game player. He's missed a lot of time, but he's got, I think, 29 points in 31 games or something. Takes a ton of shots, blocks a ton. So the only question mark for me is goaltending. They kind of have a 1A, 1B, which I don't love just because neither player has really been phenomenal. Quick started the year really good. Peterson was really bad. Quick's been worse lately. Peterson's been a bit better. So they don't have the scoring punch to pull away from some of these really good teams. So I don't think they'll do much damage in the playoffs. But against the Arizona Coyotes, they'll put 50 shots on net. They'll allow 20. Minus 220 line, what I like to do is just take the in-regulation bet. So it's about minus 130. You get the odds a little better. I find it safer than taking the puck line. So that's where I'm at tonight with the LA Kings.
Love it. You and I are on the same page. Yeah, Danault already a career high in goals, which is a little surprising. And I think everything you said was spot on. Maybe overpaid a little bit. But if they can find a way to get into the playoffs, I mean, you saw what he was able to do with Montreal and shutting down some pretty big players en route to heading to the Stanley Cup Finals. So I know that you're in on Arvidsson as a guy who loves to shoot the puck. I think Kempe is interesting. You mentioned Drew Doughty. I love the bounce back call as well. Those two are the guys for sure. Those are the guys.
Yeah, and I like to look over the last three, and Arvidsson and Kempe have been doing. I mean, it's always Arvidsson. The first line kind of swaps between Kempe and Iafallo, but it's been Kempe lately. So. For sure.
4+ shots for Arvidsson in 6 of his last 7. He's been at least 3 in 10 straight.
And
It's pretty impressive. He
always
loves to
gets
shoot
a shot. And the first hit, he always gets a shot. It's like it's a rule. He's like, guys, give me the puck. I'm taking a shot.
And I love it. Let's switch over to the Dallas game. Dallas and Winnipeg. There really is a lot on the line here. These two teams are trying to get into the playoffs. Dallas pretty good on home ice, led by that top line. This is another line that I think really just doesn't get a lot of credit with Joe Pavelski, Roope Hintz, and Jason Robertson, who's been basically a point per game guy since he's entered the league. Remarkable. This is a huge game for both teams. You have a lean on either side.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's the Dallas Stars. They came out with a massive dud against Arizona the other night, which was horrible. I had them on the bet to win in regulation, which I usually do against Arizona. So that was disappointing. But Winnipeg is also coming off a pretty demoralizing loss. They lost to Calgary on a last-minute goal. They ended up losing that game in regulation. Dallas needs to bounce back here. They got Jake Ottinger in net. He's kind of taken over as their main goalie. If they would have been smart and went with Ottinger from the start of the season, they'd probably be firmly in a playoff spot right now. They decided to ride Hudobin and Braden Holtby for the first little bit, which was a massive mistake. And now they got a little bit of catch up to do. But at home, that first line is completely dominant, as you mentioned. Roope Hintz, who last year seemed to miss every other game with an injury, he seems fully healthy. He's shooting a ton. He's scoring a ton. Joe Pavelski's on a 90-point pace somehow, his best season ever at 36 or whatever he is. So they're having a fantastic year. They do need to win these games to get into the playoff race. I think they're just out of it right now. I do think they will squeak by. I know you mentioned Anaheim as a team that could fall out. I do think they will squeak by teams like the Anaheim Ducks. Winnipeg, they needed to come out of the All-Star break and win some hockey games. They won a couple, but now they've lost their last couple games. They don't have Ehlers. They don't have Andrew Copp. Hellebuck hasn't been great, so I am firmly on the Dallas Stars here.
Love it. Do you have a favorite that you go to when it comes to Pavelski, Robertson, or Hintz? I mean, most of these guys do hit their shot props, but Pavelski, I think, is the guy. I mean, it's weird it's hard to figure out what he's. I mean, what he's doing is remarkable. I mean, at his age, to your point, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's usually between Pavelski and Hintz for me. Robertson just kind of seems to be 2 or 3 every night. He's kind of like Mr. Consistency. But at 2 to 3 shots every night, he's not hitting your prop enough to make money on it. Pavelski is the guy that I would like to go to more just because he gets those in-tight shots. He gets those rebounds. He can get 3 shots in the span of 3 seconds. Roope Hintz earlier in the year had a streak where I think he hit his over 2.5. It was almost 10 or 11 games in a row. That's kind of fallen off. The odds have gotten worse. But I did notice today the odds are getting a little better for Hintz and even Pavelski as well. So I do not trust the Winnipeg Jets defense. I think it's quite bad. So I like both of them here. I did bet Hintz and Pavelski. I bet them both. With that being said, it'll probably be Robertson who hits today, and those two will get stuck on 2 shots. But
Cecil,
I like them
can
both.
you
They start in the offensive zone all the time, especially at home. They're the line that has to score goals. They play more minutes than anybody. They get the power play time. So
Cecil, can you hang on one more segment? We got a break. We went a little long. Yeah. I want to get your thoughts on the Montreal Buffalo game and maybe get a cup winner future out of you as well. So we'll break and do one more segment. Sure. Keep her locked. Chris Meaney and Cecil Peters here with you on a Wednesday afternoon. We only got about 3 segments left. Tino's going to drop by in the next segment. We'll take an early look at just some MLB MVP futures. But since I have you, I mean, the questions are really rolling in. I wanted to give also a shout. I know you're killing it with your picks and your props. And check out Cecil. I just wanted to give some love here to Sebastian, who's just kind of giving us some love, mostly to Eric Young, the man. He's a big Sens guy. You guys can get in a room and talk the Sens all night, I think. Stutzla and Bunting helped him take down a massive hit last night, 1.8. So congratulations on that, dude. Make sure you check out Cecil's work as well, killing it for some shot props. Only about a minute and a half here. Let's bring up the Stanley Cup futures board, because this is what I really want to get some thoughts on you. I know you follow the Calgary Flames really close. We talked about them last week, I think a couple weeks ago, at 25-1. Do you think there's still value at 15-1? And then quickly, is there another team that you like on this list that maybe you'd worth a sprinkle?
Yeah, so Calgary's tough because, I mean, you're really getting them at the peak right now. I mean, nothing could be worse than betting them in the midst of a 10-game winning streak. But they're playing amazing. My one worry with Calgary, and this is something I've learned over the last couple of years watching them, is Jacob Markstrom, who's played phenomenal this year so far. When he gets fatigued, he gets really bad. So I do have a little concern come playoff time that if the games get pretty condensed, that their series go deep, that Markstrom's going to get tired and start letting in some goals. So I really hope they manage this workload going down the stretch here. But the top line's fantastic. The defense doesn't have a true superstar, but as a whole, they play great. Erica Branson's been shockingly effective. Nikita Zadorov's been shockingly effective. Kylington's been amazing. So they have a ton of really strong players. They just don't have that standout on defense. So I think that might hurt them come playoff time. So I really hope that they win the Stanley Cup. But as far as a bet, I don't think it is a huge value at 15-1. 25-1, different story.
Kind of missed the boat, right? Yeah, kind of. I do think that they'll add again. I would love to keep this Calgary conversation going with you. On the way out, Montreal or Buffalo? Are you going to bother picking a side, or are you just going to attack maybe some shot props in this game? Myron Kidd says, close your eyes, folks. I'm loving a lot of Montreal tonight, which I think could be a little scary despite them being on a 3-game winning streak. Give us one play from that game.
So hockey's a momentum game, right? Montreal has all the momentum right now, but they're still allowing a ton of shots. So the best place to probably go is any one of the Sabres top line shot prop. But none of those guys have more than 10 shots in the last 3 games. So I'm a little concerned that that's kind of fallen off. Plus money. I know you're not going to like this. I'm going to take the Buffalo Sabres to win that game. Montreal's allowing a ton of shots. Their goaltending has been fantastic, but they're playing a bunch of AHL goaltenders in net. I think Buffalo gets it done tonight.
I don't hate it. I like it, to be honest with you. I've been picking on the Habs all year, but the past week has crushed me, obviously.
I looked at it yesterday, and it was a pick 'em, and I said, all right, if Buffalo gets the plus money tomorrow, that's where my money goes. So I saw Buffalo I think it was plus 100 today, so I took the Sabres at plus 100.
They played each other 2 weeks ago, Super Bowl Sunday, and that top line combined for 5 goals.
Skinner had 4.
So, 5, 9 points, and 12 shots.
Offense.
It is. It's the entire offense.
You will beat the Buffalo Sabres, and the Buffalo Sabres goaltending is as bad as Montreal's. But plus
kind of like the over 6.5 plus money. Could see some offense. Yeah. All right, Cecil, appreciate it. Why don't you tell people where they can follow your work?
Yeah, you bet. So cecilpeters.com is where I post my daily NHL bets column. It is premium. I don't have a paywall figured out for the site yet. I'm not techy enough to figure that stuff out. By next year, I will have that figured out to make it easier. Just hit me up on Twitter at CeasePeets. I will let you know how to get access to that if you want.
Oh, love it, man. Appreciate it, dude. Let's hook up again very soon. Good luck tonight on the ice and, of course, at the Honda Classic. Tino's in here next. Don't go anywhere.
Thank you.
Welcome back in as we bring in Tino Rodriguez. A little flip there. We are going to talk some MLB. Cecil was great. I got some hockey picks and some shot props in the next segment here to wrap up. We only got about 6 minutes here left in the show. We're just going to quickly touch base on the AL and NL MVP odds. Yesterday we touched on some futures, World Series odds, as well as some home run leaders. Let's start with the American League. Do you have that up at the top here? And look at this. I mean, Shohei at 3-1, Trout at plus 350. You would think the Angels would be a lock to make the playoffs. Vlad in there at 4-1, Judge, and then there's a big gap, right? Judge 15-1, Devers 20-1, Bo 20-1. We gave a lot of love to Alvarez at 22-1 as well. Anyone jump out? We're looking for value. I mean, last year we hit Shohei at 50-1. I think that was just like a one-time thing, but I want to get your thoughts on Shohei. Like, is that just a precedent that was set? If he does the same thing or similar to what he did last year, is he just automatically the MVP again? Because in my opinion, if he has 100 punch-outs, wins 7 games and has 30 homers, steals 10 bags, this guy's the MVP again, unless we see a guy like Vlad really get the Triple Crown.
I mean, no question, but I also think it's contingent on him pitching, right? I think that's the biggest question mark. I don't know what they're going to do with him. And I also think the issue with the MVP right now is that you see him and Trout at the top. Do they take votes from each other, right? If Trout stays healthy, I think that was a big help to him last year to help him make his case. I think it was something people talked about a lot. It's why his odds were where they were, and Trout's were where they were to start the year too. I think if you're looking at a long shot, you talked him up off the top. I think 30-1 and a guy like Luis Robert, who everyone's just waiting to start mashing and hit that breakout, right? I mean, if you want to parlay the two and just start looking for that breakout, 30-1 is pretty good, enticing odds. We did see a White Sox win the MVP and Jose Abreu a couple years ago, so definitely possible. He's in a mashing lineup. Ton of RBI opportunities. He's got the speed, has the glove. So I could see a Luis Robert case, but honestly, I would love to see Vladdy. I wouldn't bet on Vladdy with those odds, at 4.5-1, but I'd love to see him do it because, you can make a case that guy almost won a Triple Crown last year. Shohei doesn't do what he does. We're looking at Vladdy being the MVP. We also got chirped on Twitter for not mentioning Vladdy yesterday. So I had to mention him today. I don't want the Vladdy wagon coming at me.
Vladdy is very topical on Twitter. If you're following some baseball people, there's been some Vladdy conversations. Let's switch over to the NL, and I think you were spot on with the analysis when it comes to the Angels. When I gave Ohtani last year on some shows, and of course over at FTN, that was the pushback that Trout would kind of cut in, but him not playing kind of worked out in that favor. Soto is the favorite here at plus 350. I think his days are numbered here in Washington. Tatis at plus 350 as well. So they're both 350. Acuna 9-1. Not sure if he's going to be ready. I mean, you can go down the board. Your boy Pete at 30-1, Albies at 30-1, Lindor at 30-1, and then we get into some longer shots. Like, it was interesting looking at AL and NL. AL was just like it seemed like there was a lot of just really good players in 30-1, and then we get down into the range. Like, I don't think Marte or Machado, like, we'd have to have Tatis would be hurt. Like, these guys are not winning the MVP. But who jumps out at you here on this list?
So, well, the first thing that jumps out to me as a biased Met fan is that there's 3 Mets on this list, so I'm not really sure how to handle that. I mean, Francisco Lindor, though, I think he's due for a breakout year. I think a lot of people are kind of teeing that up. 30-1 is relatively good value, especially when you're comparing him with Pete Alonso. I don't think Pete Alonso has a play at MVP on that team if you follow it close enough. I think Arenado 30-1 is good enough. A super long shot would be a guy I mentioned in Paul Goldschmidt. I think one of those Cardinals make a lot of sense. One of those 2 big dogs, especially because you're going to get either of them longer than 30-1. The real question is, Meaney, how many times will I bet Fernando Tatis Jr. to win the MVP and just burn my money? Like, every year, and I'm going to do it again. His odds aren't even good, and I'm just going to do it again because he's just taking so much money from me, and I want the guy to win it so bad. So bad. He's going to separate his shoulder 2 weeks into the season, and there goes my bet. But
I hope not, but you're probably right. I mean, if that guy can stay healthy, he's another guy that just touches so many categories. He's very, very electric. I do like that call as well. We unfortunately do have to get out of here. We're going to continue the MLB talk, Tino. You and I are really going to hammer home some of this stuff as well. We'll get into that, Myron. Maybe tomorrow I'll circle back on some odds there when it comes to some other players. But we do. Let's break. I thought on this list, I'll say this. I thought Acuna was interesting, and I think even Albies is interesting. There's some reports that Freddie Freeman could leave that team. Maybe it would help some other guys. I know losing that bat in that lineup would be a huge, huge miss, but maybe that would, you could maybe sprinkle a little bit on someone like Acuna or Albies in there. All right, one more break, and we'll get into we'll wrap up the show with a couple NHL shot props and some picks. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back in one final time. I got some NHL picks here for you, pretty much on the same page as Cecil. If you want to start with the shot props, Tino, we'll get after it here. Joe Pavelski, Alex Tuch, Nikita Kucherov. Tuch is a little bit juiced up, but he's averaging 3.3 shots per game. He's had at least 3 in 9 of his past 10. He's had at least 4 in 8 of his last 10. The Habs given up a lot of rubber, just like Cecil said. Joe Pavelski, he's cleared in 10 of his past 14 games. It's actually our free bet of the night over at ftnbets.com/free. Sign up for that newsletter. You get a free pick. Hopefully we can bounce back from yesterday. We've been pretty decent with the free picks, but for Pavelski, rather, 3.16 shots per game on home ice compared to 2.24 on the road. So I always like him at home. He's cleared in 10 of his past 14. Nikita Kucherov also juiced up, but you put these 3 in a parlay and away you go, or you want to go Tuch and Kucherov. Kucherov has 4+ shots in 9 of his last 10, and you got the bonus there. Victor Arvidsson, who he said in the segment with Cecil, 4+ shots in 6 of his past 7 games. He also has 18 points in his last 18 games. And here for the picks, I do still like the Avs, despite Nate McKinnon being out of the lineup here tonight. Maybe you can wait it out, get some better odds. I think a big night for Kadri there, get him in your DFS lineups. I like the Kings in 60, and I like goals between the Sabres and the Montreal Canadiens, 6.5 at +100. Both of these teams inside the top 10 in shot attempts, scoring chances, high danger chances, expected goals, and goals allowed at 5 and 5 per 60. So we could see some offense, especially from that top line in Buffalo. And Cole Caulfield's pretty hot as well. He's got 5 goals in 6 games. Myron Adames is 50-1 to win the NL MVP. More baseball talk tomorrow. Good luck on the ice. Good luck on the links. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Cheers.